how to not start smoking when you get feeling overwhelmed or if you experience tragedy in your life. Do you fail at quitting smoking when you get feeling overwhelmed or you have a particular major event like a tragedy in your life and this causes you to fail at smoking? If that is you, this video is for you, and make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to give you 3 things that you can actually do to make sure that you can get past that and actually quit. I'm going to put a link in the video description below to my calendar so you can book yourself into a free 15-minute phone consultation with me where I'll simply get you on the right track to quitting smoking for the rest of your life. It's free and it's fun. Take advantage of it. If this is your first time to this channel and you're interested in tons of tips, tricks, and hacks on how to quit smoking for the rest of your life, then subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the notification button. It simply tells you when I post new content. And I post new content at a minimum twice a week. Let's hop right into the content of the video now. Tragedy and feeling overwhelmed are terrible when they happen. If that has happened to you, there may be nothing that I can say to ease it for you or make the pain go away. It's difficult, and sometimes life is difficult and we experience difficult things. And this can get in our way of quitting smoking. What I can do is I can tell you that there are known ways in psychology to deal with these issues. Now, this video is not about how to get over these types of issues, but rather how you can not use smoking as a crutch to try and solve these issues. How you can not fall back on smoking and actually stay quit. That all being said, let's hop right in. Something's happened and now you're dying for a smoke. What do? Here's what you don't do. Reach for a cigarette. The reason is that whatever it is that's bothering you or that's happened to you or what's stressing you out or whatever tragedies happened in your life, it will not be solved by smoking. So whether you've lost somebody close to you, something's happened between you and your partner, all of these things that happen to us in the course of our life, I promise you, are never solved by smoking. Smoking will not change the facts of what happened. Now, that's not very helpful, is it? It's just a piece of knowledge that's good to understand. It's just good as a starting point to understand that smoking, there's actually no known problems that smoking has ever solved. Whatever problems you're having or may have or had in the past will not be problems that are solved by smoking. So when we have problems or tragedy, what can we do? Well, actually, we can do a lot. So let's go through those 3 things that we can actually do to make your situation better so you don't try and solve it with a cigarette, because we know it's not going to solve anything, smoking. In fact, it's probably going to make things worse. So these 3 things. The first thing that we can do is we can avoid the things that make the problem worse or stunt recovery. So that's number 1. Avoid the things that make the problem worse or get in the way of recovery or getting better. So there's just a couple of components to this. We call them the 3 Ps. They are personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. These are the 3 things we do when tragedy hits. We go through these 3 things. So let's go through these together. Personalization. This is essentially, it's our fault. Now, this may be true, but in all likely, it's only partially true. I'll give you an example. If somebody that's close to you has passed away, unless you literally cause them to pass away, it's not your fault. Problems with other people or say with relationships, it's never one person's fault. It's a dance that people do. But we tend to personalize tragedy in our life. We tend to make everything either our fault or we project it on somebody else. We blame somebody else. It's all their fault. So we either personalize it to ourselves or we personalize it to them and we shift it all onto them. The truth is, in life, usually it's always a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. We always do these dances together. So that's just how our brain kind of works. We call this personalization. And I'll tell you how to beat that in a minute. Number 2 is pervasiveness. We start to think it's going to affect all areas of our life. When tragedy strikes, we think this is going to affect everything in our life. Psychology has shown time and time again that this is not true. In fact, humans are incredibly resilient, including you, and we have a tremendous capacity to bounce back. But we have this thing when tragedy strikes us, it's pervasive, it's going to infect every part of my life. But we know that's not true. The third P is performance. It's going to last forever. Sorry, performance. I meant to say permanence, not performance. Permanence. It's permanent. It's going to last forever. Or at least it feels that way, which is often very true. It does feel that way. But again, science tells us that what we actually are doing is what they call over forecasting. We overestimate how long feelings are going to last, and we do this all of the time. So those are the 3 Ps. Now, everything that I just said about those 3 Ps may be true, and just giving you that knowledge may not actually help. And you still may feel stuck in it. But it's important to understand that, because I'm now going to tell you what you actually can do. So the first thing you can do about it is write it down. And what do I mean by that? Write down the belief that is underlying the feeling of something like, it's my fault. So remember the 3 Ps? Personalization, it's everywhere, and it's going to last forever. Write down the underlying ideas and beliefs on a piece of paper. And particularly things like, if you have the belief, it's my fault, write it down. And whatever it is you write down, whatever notes you take, challenge it. This is the exercise. Write it down and then challenge it. Come up with ways about why it's not true. What this does is it helps give you balance, because when tragedy strikes, we get out of balance. So we need some perspective. So the first thing you can do, the first tip, trick, and hack is write it down. Write down the underlying belief behind whatever's happened to you about those 3 Ps, the personalization, that it's prevalent everywhere and that it's permanent. Write down those underlying beliefs about the problem, and then argue the opposite. That's tip number 1. So just realize these things. It's likely not 100% your fault. It actually won't affect every area of your life. And it's not going to last forever. Sometimes this knowledge can start the healing process. So number 1 was write it down. Number 2, ask yourself this question. How much worse can it be? Even if what has happened is really, really bad and overwhelming to you, we know that in psychology, when we ask ourselves the question of how worse can it be, we're doing something called decatastrophizing. So what happens is when something really bad happens, like the loss of a loved one or a parent, we catastrophize about how bad this is going to be on us. But if we ask the question of, well, as dark as this may sound, well, at least I didn't lose both parents. This starts something in our brain called decatastrophizing. It starts to bring us back into balance. It's kind of like realizing it's not the end of the world. Sometimes focusing on how much worse something could be actually helps to bring something into perspective. And then you can start to climb out of it. So the first one was write it down and challenge the underlying beliefs. 2 is ask yourself how much worse could it be? This will start to help you climb out of it. The little nuance I want to add to number 2 here about how much worse could it be, start to shift yourself towards gratitude. Here's why gratitude is really important. We know from the science of happiness that the people that are most happy in the world are the most grateful. It's kind of the secret to happiness. So when you ask yourself, it could be worse. So I should probably be grateful is a way that you start to climb out and bring yourself back. So if thinking about how it could be worse will make it better, but it's hard to do these things because we're suffering, what do you do when you feel you can't manage it yourself? So even though you do these 2 things, you write it down, you ask yourself how worse can it be, you try to be grateful, sometimes you still can't get over the suffering, And you just ask yourself, well, even if I do all that, I still can't seem to manage this by myself. What do? You don't. Don't manage it by yourself. Number 3 is don't manage it by yourself. It's get support. 1 is write it down and do that exercise. 2 is imagine it could be worse and be grateful. Number 3 is don't do it by yourself. Get support. I know it's obvious, but it's vital. Talk to others about what you're dealing with. If a really good thing to do is pick somebody who you think is the best person to talk to about this particular issue, somebody who's been there before. Ask them to be your support buddy that you can call at a moment's notice to just talk to. Or you can also go stay at a friend's house or a family's house for a few days or a few weeks as you deal with these issues. Support is the number 1 way people deal with tragedy. So those are 3 things you can do, because if you do that instead of the smoking, you're actually more likely to get past whatever it is you're dealing with. So let's just summarize the things that you can do to help with tragedy or feeling overwhelmed that's not smoking. 1, remember the 3 P's: pervasiveness, personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. Realize that you are over-exaggerating all 3 of these. Write down how you're doing this and then challenge it. Offer a different perspective to yourself. 2, ask how much worse it can be. This gives you perspective and use the tool of gratitude to drive a shift towards happiness. 3, support. A support buddy. Go stay with someone else. Reach out to others, someone who's had a similar experience. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to notice what's absent from all of these things I just gave you that you can do to deal with tragedy or feeling overwhelmed. Notice what's absent, what is not there. Smoking. None of these things involve smoking. You want to know why? Smoking does not solve problems. There is no known problem in the world that smoking solves. None. It will not make you feel better. In fact, it will make you feel worse. Because however bad you feel now because of what's happened, how overwhelmed you are, or the tragedy in your life, now add smoking onto that. Now you have added on the fear of what may happen to you because you're smoking, to your health. You've also added on failure on top of everything you're already going through. So if you think to yourself, my life is really hard, I need to smoke, it's not going to help you. It is not going to solve a single problem. In fact, it's only going to make it worse. So if this video was helpful, remember I put a link in the bottom. In that link, in my description, you can book yourself into a free 15-minute phone consultation with me. I'll get you on the right track to quit smoking for the rest of your life. It's free, take advantage of it, it's fun. We'll have a good time. Next, if this is your first time on my channel, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And make sure you hit that notification button. It simply tells you when I post new content, and I post 2 new pieces of content twice a week, minimum. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would love to have you on it. And subscribe to my Instagram. I post lots of motivational success stories from people who have done my program on both my Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Blessings to everyone, and I wish you the absolute best.